Good afternoon and good morning to all of you who are able to join us today. This is our third webinar in the Sales Hacker Guide to the Galaxy series, and we're excited that all of you are able to join us for email prospecting that clicks. Today's presenter will be Derek Wazinski, but before we pass it over to him, I'd like to take you through just a couple of housekeeping items. First item is locating the questions pane of the GoToMeeting side panel. If everyone will take a second to do that, please. You can type your questions into the question pane throughout the session today, or we'll also take questions during the Q&A at the end. So feel free to ask lots of questions. We encourage it, and we'll be taking those questions as we go along. This session is also being recorded, and we will make sure that everyone gets a link to the recorded session following today. With that, I'll pass it over to Derek.
Hi, thanks so much. Hopefully everybody can hear me here. Amy, can everybody hear me? Am I broadcasting?
As far as I can tell, everyone can hear you, Derek.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining today, our webinar here. I appreciate you spending some time with me today in regards to talk a little bit about email prospecting and a little bit about some of the things that I've learned throughout my career and actually within the last couple of years when it comes to email prospecting. So let's go ahead and basically let's get started. We're calling this Volume 3 of our Sales Hacker Guide. This is a prospecting email that clicks. For those of you that don't know, I am Derek Wazinski. My title is Chief Sales Hacker here at Zinbit. If you do know me, you probably know I give my opinion a lot on Twitter and LinkedIn, so you can feel free to go ahead and take a look at some of my content on there. But today, primarily what we're going to be talking about is prospecting via email in this new normal that we find ourselves in this environment for B2B sales, because as most of you are probably B2B salespeople or work within B2B sales orgs. You know how difficult it is to go ahead and fill that pipe, to go out and talk to people, to have people connect with you and interact with you. So we're going to take a look at specifically a way we can create a messaging platform as salespeople, not relying on marketing, but relying on ourselves as salespeople to create a messaging platform that can go ahead and communicate to the right people so we can meet with them, so we can talk with them, so we can demo them and eventually sell them. So that's basically where we're going to start. Now, the first thing is, obviously, you may be thinking, you know, Derek, why are you talking about email? Everywhere I look, they say email is dead. Nobody reads email. I delete all these emails for, you know, all these prospecting emails that I get, I never read. And that's kind of the conventional wisdom that you can see a lot out there. Or people are basically saying, you know, email is no longer a valid way of taking a look and communicating with someone to get them to talk to you about what you're selling. And that's been for a while. Back in 2004, John Dvorak wrote an article calling for the, you know, basically saying that email was dead, that email was about to die. Funny thing is, about 11 years ago, he wrote the same article again. And in the interim between that time, almost 8 million articles or 8 million references to the death of email. You can see, just take a look at Bing or Google. The issue really is it's not really the death of email. I personally believe that email and the death of email as a prospecting tool has been greatly exaggerated. I think the way it's been utilized, that way is dead. But I think the actual medium of email is alive and well. Now, why do I think that? Well, I think that primarily because whether you are at work or whether you work from home, people like email. And these aren't my numbers. These are numbers coming from InsideSales.com. And what these numbers go ahead and tell us are specifically at work, people rely and appreciate and wish to communicate via email 94%, as opposed to all other mediums, whether it be cell phone, landline, text, or even voicemail. And when you look at people at home, whether they're at home or they work from home, by far 88% of people wish to communicate via email. And if you really look, there's really nobody has landlines anymore at home. And if you take a look, social is very important for home users as well, people from work from home and that. And these are numbers that are specifically important not only to you as a salesperson, but specifically to this presentation as well, especially the social number there that you're taking a look at. But people do, in fact, utilize email. So much so that when you take a look at worldwide, email still remains the go-to form of communication. There's over 1 billion email boxes, email inboxes, business-based. 132 billion emails are sent and received every day. And for business users, by the end of this year, over 1.8 billion people will be utilizing mobile email specifically for business. So email is still the medium out there that is the way to communicate to suspects, to turn them into prospects, and to turn prospects into customers. But like with anything, any tool, whether it be the old days of using the phone or knocking on doors or using email, someone developed a series of rules for emails about email prospecting. And they were put together by a bunch of people, maybe in marketing or whatnot, but they basically say the same couple of 3 or 4 things. They say you got to grab them initially with something intriguing or funny. Your subject line is really important. You've got to keep the email short, and you have to ask for the meeting. There's no reason to send a prospecting email if you're not specifically asking for a meeting, right? Well, when you do that, you get emails like this. And you've probably seen templates like this. You probably send emails like this, templates like this. And we don't have enough time for me to tell you exactly what I think of emails like this, but I know that I don't read them. And as someone who is a buyer and someone who is at the C-level within an organization, I don't respond to emails like this because there's nothing about me in them. Specifically, someone bought a list to see that I'm on G Suite, and now they're sending me emails asking me for a 5-minute meeting. Now, why are these emails so bad? I mean, what is it about them? Well, case in point, what happens is that in sales we have this thought that we have to be a badger. We have to be the honey badger. We have to go out for the prospect, and we have to, with grit and determination, we need to bang down doors. We need to pick up the phone. We need to send a lot of emails in order to get people to talk to us. The problem with the word badger is exactly what it means. You end up sounding like this. You end up sounding like a person that is only interested in one thing, and that's getting an email from an individual. And as someone on the receiving end of these emails, ask yourself, do you appreciate this approach yourself? And answer that honestly. Now, there's only 2 sales books I'm going to talk about in this presentation, and actually they're the only 2 I've actually read in the last couple of years. The first is by Justin Rolfe Marsh, and it's called The Machine. And really, he talks about when you're dealing with a prospect, they still need to be convinced to move forward with you, whether your next step is a demo or a meeting or whatever it is. And so that means this first conversation, this first interaction with a potential prospect is the most critical one. And it's the very first one. And you have to ask yourself, with your customers and all of the noise that they're surrounded by and all of the different mediums that they're being communicated with, if you have 3 seconds or 8 seconds to go ahead and grab their attention, which person on this end do you want to be? Do you want to be the badger just asking for a meeting? Or do you want to be someone who's willing to have to convince someone to talk to you, a critical conversation? So this is what I learned, why I failed. And I had failed for a little while I was at Xerox at Modern Prospecting, because I grew up in sales in the Xerox mold, which was nothing beat shoe leather, and then when people stopped answering their doors, nothing beat the phone. And when email first started, nothing beat email, reach out. And the issue is why I was failing a couple years back on Modern Prospecting was the fact that I thought my prospects had a burning problem that I could solve with my technology, right? And I cared. I really did believe that I could help my prospects. And I really thought that if only I could talk to them, if only they would listen to me for a second, they'd fall in love with me and my solution. And there was one singular problem with that thought process. And the thought process was it was all about me and what I wanted. You see, the real fact of your addressable market, your total, whether you're selling HR software or whether you're selling radio time or whether you're selling IBM's, IBM technology, only 5% of your total addressable market out there is in a buying mode. 95%, everybody else is not in a buying process. So they don't know they have a problem, and if they do have a problem, it's not a priority, and they really don't care about you or what you're offering. So it's our job as salespeople, and it became my job as a sales pro to change that. And I had to make the conversation not about me and about what I wanted, but about the prospect and about the customer and about what they were going through and what they were talking about. So I created this process, and I call it the ramped process. And the reason I did it was because I learned that 90% of business buyers say that when they're ready to buy, they'll find you. Now, if you live, and most of you are probably on a quota, and you probably are on some level of commission for your total for your total earnings, there's some level of commission or bonus. That number should scare you, because you don't want to wait for that 90% to pick up the phone and call you and say, "Hey, Jack, I'd like to buy some of your software." I mean, you have to go ahead and find out and seek out and look for people so you can make your numbers, so you can make your quota, so you can make your President's Club trips, right? So the fact is, this scared me as a quota-bearing salesperson. So what I did is I created this ramped process. And what the ramp process is, it's 4 parts. I have to recognize who within an organization I'm really supposed to be talking to. And I've got to analyze what they do and really figure out what they're interested in talking about. I've got to create a message, and I have to provide that message to my prospect at certain points within their own buyer's journey life cycle, right? And then once I do that, I've got to continually test it, deploy it, test it, and deploy it. Throw out what doesn't work, keep what does work. This is not a one and done kind of thing. This is constantly changing. The prospecting emails I'm sending today look entirely different than the prospecting emails I sent a year ago, and they should. Because if you're sending the same email that you were saving 12 months ago, you're probably getting minimized results. So how do we do that? How do we recognize and analyze those first part of the ramp process? And first off, I say it's not, you have to remember, it's not about us. It's about our customer. It's about our prospect. And this goes back to what I've really talked about in some other webinars, our ideal customer profile. And our ideal customer profile really hinges on 4 things. Who are the people we're talking to? Why am I interesting to them? What are they interested in? And how can I get them to engage with me, right? So let's take a look. Now what I've done here is I went ahead and created a process. I could easily show you my process about how I sell Zinbit to customers, because all of my customers are salespeople or sales leaders or CRM admins. But that would kind of be a cop-out, I would think. That's kind of a cheap way of doing it, showing you that is how I do it. So what I did is I've sold copiers in Xerox, I've sold enterprise software, I've sold to AP departments, I've sold to IT departments. I've never sold to HR departments. I've never sold any type of HR enablement software. So what I've done is I've created an example here of where we're going to go start from the very part of the process, and we're going to use my ramped process to create an email prospecting utility that will work for HR software buyers. And so what I've done first is I'm determining about who are the people, who really are the people I should be talking to. And when I take a look at the people that I should be talking to, routinely what we have found is that in our organizations and in our business, we've always thought about talking to one person. We thought about talking to the decision maker, talking to an individual, someone who's the CEO or maybe the CEO of the problem. But as all of you, for the scores of you that are on this webinar right now, you know that there are multiple people involved in your process. If you're selling like Jane here, if she's selling HR software, yeah, she's got to talk to the HR director. They're responsible for the solution, but there's also end users. There's an HR recruiter or recruiters that they utilize the system from a portal, but they're contract. There's the IT director who, we all talk to those people if we sell technology who can say yay or nay on something. And then there's definitely then the CEO or the CEO of the problem that signs the contract. And here I'm going to diverge a little bit from where I really think we should be concentrating as salespeople, because as you all know, 5 to 7 people are involved in any type of B2B decision-making process. So when you're looking at targeting people for your emails, for email prospecting, you take a look at these people. Routinely, it's always been the CEO or the CEO of the problem or the line of business manager. But in spite of popular belief, CEOs aren't really risk takers. They're just managing the course. They're making gradual changes. So if you've got technology, if you've got a solution that's a game changer, if you've got something that's going to save somebody 50% of their spend, but they have to take a chance on you, the CEO and the C-level person is not the person you should be talking to. And I know that's going to go against a lot of conventional wisdom, and people may call me on it, but I'll stand by this because it's worked for me and it's worked for people that I've talked through this process. So concentrating on these people, concentrating on these people that can be influencers, can make the decision, but that can also give you vital intelligence on how to move the deal forward is essential. And so from this point forward, we're going to be talking about how to communicate via email, prospect these particular individuals in any particular deal. So once we know that we need to talk to the HR director, the HR user, the HR recruiter, and the IT director, right? We need to figure out exactly what are they actually interested in. And if you take a look here, I've done a little research and I've looked at from a director level what they're interested in, onboarding, retention, HR users, there's the day-to-day stuff. The recruiter is all about candidate and opportunity management. The IT guy cares about security, about systems. And then the CEO is all about corporate strategy, P&L, vision, the big types of things. So how do we find this information out? How do we know what these individuals, what these ideal customers are actually interested in? And again, we need to know all of this before we even start writing an email, because if we don't, we might as well just send, hey, can I have 5 minutes of your time to tell you about my widget? So this is kind of the pre-work that needs to be done. And it's work we've actually done as salespeople in history for a long period of time. When I first started as a salesperson way back in the day, I was told by my sales manager to read the paper every day, especially the sports section. And the reason is because when I have conversations, I can go ahead and communicate with people about what's going on, about the weather, about news, about my kids, about my pets. And these were the way that we started and we built relationships. But it all started with taking a look at the newspaper and reading about what's going on. I did this for myself. I am not a big football fan. That's primarily because I was born in Detroit and our team isn't actually the greatest ever. But I'm not a particularly big football fan. But when I started in sales, I read the sport page every day. And I could tell you exactly what was going on in the NFL because it was important for me to have those communications. However, that was in the 1980s and 1990s. If we take a look today, people are interested, business people are interested in a great many other things. And this type of relationship building, why it still exists within some verticals, is almost non-existent in others. I know selling in the SaaS market, in what I do with Zinbit, selling SaaS-based software, when I talk to a customer, and we just signed a very big customer last month, the person who signed the deal with us doesn't even know what state I live in, because I've never physically met them. And that is the new reality. So how do we build that relationship? Because we all believe that relationship is incredibly important. How do we build the relationship that we've built in the past, face-to-face, over email and over other mediums? And I believe the way we do that is really talking about what the customer wants to talk about. Now this isn't very complex. When you're talking about an HR director, they're interested in themselves and how you can help them. It's a little bit different when you talk to an HR end user, right? Because they're only interested in themselves and how you can help them. And your recruiter, they're interested in themselves and how you can help them. Your IT director is really interested in how you can help them, and he's also interested in himself. And then your CEO is really interested in their next CEO position. So this is the reality out there, and those of you that sell B2B every day can probably attest that this is what you're finding, that they are interested in themselves and they're interested in how you specifically can help them. So to understand them and how you can help them, you need to figure out exactly what they're interested in, what is interesting in their industries. And we have a fantastic utility out there in the world called LinkedIn. And a lot of people utilize it for email prospecting to find names, to find people, to find information about a company. And that's all well and good, you know, if it's 2004. But in 2017, you should be mining LinkedIn for information about your vertical, about the customers that you're selling to, about what is interesting to them. If you go to LinkedIn right now and you can do a search on posts and you can find out what HR directors are thinking about, what they're talking about, what they're sharing with each other, the articles that they're writing. You can also go to HR groups and join them, and you can find out exactly what those 2,646,000 members in HR Managers Software and Technology Group, what they're interested in. The 358,000 HR professionals in that group, what they're interested in, what's going on in those articles. And then if you have a computer, you can take a look at what's going on and read a bunch of HR blogs. Now, why is this important? This is important because if you're not spending at least 90 minutes a day reading up on your industry, someone who is going to drink your milkshake, because they are going to be able to pick up their keyboard and send an email or connect with someone that will talk to them about what the prospect wants to talk about. So those times that we've spent doing other things, we need to go ahead and carve out some time to do this. And again, you're probably saying, well, this is a lot of work just to send an email. Well, it is. I mean, you can go out, you can buy a list, and you can send 10,000 emails and see what happens. Or you can go ahead and tune your emails and get some of the results that we'll be talking about a little bit later. So we figured out who, we figured out what they're interested in. Now, why are we specifically interesting to them? And this is a real hard thing for a lot of sales professionals to come to grips with, is that you have to answer almost the existential question of why am I as a person, why am I as a sales rep interesting to these particular customer profiles? Why would they want to talk to me? And so what I did is I really took a look and I asked myself the question, why am I as a person interesting? Do I have insight into the industry that I'm selling to? Real insight. It's not just stats, not just the latest Gartner numbers, but insight that I've gleaned from actually selling, sitting in rooms, talking to customers. Have I had accomplishments? And not my President Club wins or how much, how many times I've been 200% a quota, which is a lot, but what kind of history of successful clients have I had? What kind of success stories have I perpetuated in my career? Do I really understand what my customers are going through, or are they just a means to an end? Are they a means to a quota number? Are they a means to me making a certain amount of commission? The next big thing, can I see over the horizon in my industry and find out what's coming? And do I understand what's coming? Or am I trapped in selling my thing or my widget because that's where my safety net is? That's my safe space. That's where I feel safe. Am I really customer centric? People talk a great deal about the buyer's journey, but do I really believe it? Do I really believe in the buyer's journey, or am I still trying to go ahead and push buyers to purchase in some pre-manufactured month-end, quarter-end process that my sales org has created? And am I worthy? And for me, this was the hardest one. If my customer didn't need what I was selling them, would I be interesting enough for them still to listen to me? And that, for years when I was selling copiers at Xerox, I can honestly say the answer to that question personally was no. And that was a hard pill to swallow for someone who thinks as much of themselves as I do. The fact of the matter is that there was absolutely no reason for any one of my customers to answer an email of mine, or to log on to a webinar that I was throwing, or to read an article of mine, if they weren't in the process of buying copiers, digital systems, right? So I had to change the way I was doing, and I had to figure out how to answer yes to these questions. And once I did, then I was able to go ahead and say, well, now I can craft some interesting messaging that communicates all of this to prospects, so I can move them forward in a buying process. So we know who, we know what, we know why. Now it's all about how. How do I get them to engage with me? How do I go ahead and get them to read an email, to interact with me? Well, a couple weeks ago we had Sales Hacker Guide to the Galaxy Volume 2, and in the email after this webinar we're going to send a link to that recording as well. But in that webinar I really talked about tuning your social media profile to make it an opportunity engine. And what that is, that's really a prerequisite to sending really great prospecting emails. And it talks about rebuilding your social media profile and getting rid of the cat videos. It talks about how to connect with all your customers and to tell Aunt Janice, you know, I love the sweaters, but my Facebook and my Twitter and my LinkedIn are all connecting to my customers, and why that's important. And then we talked about how to create, how to share other people's content, and how to create some of your own content. So when you get the email after this webinar, please take a look at that particular webinar. There was also some handouts for it, but I really think that's a prerequisite to what we're going to talk about here, which is about how to go ahead and craft this message. But the first part of the messaging, how to answer that question, am I interesting to the customer? You have to do all of this, because that's how you become interesting. That's how you become interesting, and that's how somebody follows you or likes you or listens to your, reads your email or watches your webinar, even when they don't know if they're going to buy anything from you. So the reasoning behind that is, again, and I'm a big fan of stats, and I do believe in data. I think you can win with data. And I think that 68% of buyers increase the amount of content they use to research and evaluate their purchases. So that's why content is incredibly important. And as we go through and talk about the email and what is in the email right now, you'll understand why having that ancillary content at your disposal is important. So here we go now. Here's the part of where we actually break down the parts of the prospecting email. And I call this the anatomy of a prospecting email. And I look at an email not as just a way to communicate. It really is it's a living, breathing thing. It's always changing. Like I said, the emails I sent a year ago are different than the emails I send today, because I'm different and my customers are different than they were a year ago. Technology has changed. The environment has changed. Everything's changed. So just like a body, this email has to continually be changing. However, there are 6 things within a body of an email, within an email itself, that I think that are universal, that are always there, and that need to be there. One of the things is the brain, the market insights. You need to know your industry. You need to understand what's going on in the industry. So if you're selling HR software, you need to know that 1/3 of all new hires quit before 6 months anniversary. That's a statistic. That's a market insight that is valuable to know. So you need to know these things, and you need to be able to communicate them not only in email, but in everyday regular conversation. You have to have content, and we're going to talk about why it's links and not attachments, but you have to have good content that you can share with your suspects and with your to make them prospects and to make prospects customers. You need to be able to share stuff, and not just stuff from your marketing department, not just stuff that's about, you know, your widget is 50% better than someone else's widget, because I get those emails all the time, and you do probably too, and I don't read any of them, and I don't know if you read any of them, but I know my customers don't, so I don't send them. But I do send content that is valuable to them, or at least that what they've communicated to me is valuable to them. The most important part of any, I think, email, any prospecting email, is the heart. What is it really about? It really needs to be personalized. You saw that email in the very beginning of the presentation. The reason that email doesn't work is because the only personal thing about it is the name at the beginning of the email. So you need to personalize content People love talking and hearing about themselves. So as I say said in a LinkedIn article, don't fight millions of years of evolution, right? Go ahead and talk about them. Go ahead and personalize that content. Now the rest of the body is incredibly important as well. So you have here the gut, the stomach. And what's the gut? It's a proof source. People don't buy, people don't move forward in a process, people don't click a link in an email without understanding that there's a proof source behind it. If I claim that I can do 50% of this or that, I better have a proof source to back it up, and not just my marketing material. I should have third-party reviews, I should have other things like that that can go ahead and show me. Statistics, maybe case studies, but those types of proof sources are incredibly important. Social presence. Every email should have access to your social media presence. They should be able to go from your email and go anywhere within your social media environment to find where you are, to find out what you're talking about, to find out what you're commenting on and what you're saying, right? And that's essential. And really, the thing that ties it all together, at least for me, is how you track all this. So the connective tissue, the joints, the ligaments of the thing that binds the email, prospecting email together is the ability to track what's happening with that email. Are they reading it? Are they clicking the links? Are they forwarding it to their boss? What are they doing on your website? You know, can I figure this out specifically on a one-to-one basis? Sure, globally is great. If I'm a marketing department and I send 11,000 emails, I want to know what's going on with those emails. But the people on this webinar are not a marketing department. We are quota-bearing salespeople. So when I send an email to a singular individual, I need to know what's going on with that particular email. And the thing that you don't see here, the thing I talk about in the body, the 11th toe, the thing that's not necessary, the thing that you don't read, that you shouldn't really be doing. And again, I know I'm going against, you know, potentially hundreds of years of sales advice, is asking for that meeting in the initial in the initial interaction. I don't take meetings from people I don't know, and I don't know if you do, but if you don't, then you probably shouldn't be asking for meetings for people that you don't know, because it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't ring true to the way business is done today. There's a lot of people that will say otherwise there, but again, that's just a personal observation. So no 11th toe for me. So we've got through the RA process, the part of that ramped up process where we've researched and we've analyzed exactly, we've recognized and we've analyzed what's going on. So now, how do we message? How do we provide that message? How do we test and deploy? And the way I look at this, is this is the new frontier. This is really kind of space exploration. And how do you get from where you are on your little rocket ship, where you've done all the research and you know what your customers want to talk about and you know how to talk to them, and how do you plant your flag on that new planet, on that new horizon, right? Well, here's the way. What I think you do first is you need to make the emails personal, as I said. You need to talk about them. And then you need to show that you're paying attention to them as people, not just their company, but to them. You need to offer insight, and not only insight, but offer an offer. Give them something of value. And when it comes to value, you need to present proof, and always be nonchalant about the proof that you're offering. You need to deliver a compliment, a real thanks, not just thank you for reading my email, but thanks for something else, and I'll show you what that looks like in the example. And then whatever you've done, you need feedback and fine-tuning. You need to find out what works and what hasn't in order to move forward with your next email to the individual, or your next email to similar individuals and similar companies. So how do we do this? Well, again, the very first thing is that we're going to take a look at the IT director here, Gene Williams, right? So Gene Williams was our IT director in our example, HR. And so what is Gene interested in talking about? Well, looky here. Gene is interested, her articles, she's interested in why great employees quit. She actually shared something, she wrote something about that. And again, this is essential. I told you at the beginning, there's only 2 sales books I've read in the last couple of years. One was The Machine, this was the next one, by Graham Hawkins, The Future of the Sales Process. Graham talks a lot about prospecting and a lot about how We're not utilizing the tools necessary in order to go ahead and communicate. Jean doesn't want to talk about how she went, where she went to university. Jean doesn't want you to talk about, her cats or her dogs or anything else, or her kids, or her master's degree. Jean is telling you what she wants to talk about because she shared that information with you. She's already told you. So utilizing this is essential to crafting the perfect prospecting email, really what I call the email that clicks. So that's a lot of runway. So now we're about to take off here. So here's the email to our HR director. And I'll just quickly read it. Jean, I read the post you shared on LinkedIn, and I've definitely found myself working for organizations like that. Hey, thanks for liking my comment. I work with a lot of HR directors, blah, blah, blah. What I've done here is I've offered insight. I've created the offer. I want her to come to the webinar that I'm giving on employee retention. I'm not giving her a big sales pitch, but I've given her some proof sources. And look at the close. I really give her a true compliment. Thanks again for the article. I really enjoy sharing best HR practices, so please continue to share your insight. It really does provide value for the rest of us, right? Essential. I have sent this email or types of email like this at least hundreds of times in the last couple of months, but definitely thousands of times over the last couple of years in one form or another. I can tell you the reaction to this type of email, and I'll show you one of the reactions at the end of this presentation. But this type of email is the type of email, like I said at the beginning, that clicks. And how do we know that? Because again, remember what I talked about? Interaction tracking, how that's the connective tissue that brings all of this. If you're sending these types of emails and she doesn't respond and she doesn't hit reply, how do you know they're effective? Well, you can tell they're effective because when you take a look at the email when it's sent in the real world, when you look at things, when you can look at the tracking and you can see that Jean has not only opened it and read it, but she's clicked the links. She went ahead and clicked the link on, she's clicked the link on my webinar. She went ahead and clicked my LinkedIn. She looked at my customer reviews. She looked at my Twitter. She even read the link to the article I said about 1/3 of employees quit in their first 6 months. I can see all of this. And again, I'm not a marketer. I'm not looking at 1,000 emails. I'm looking at one email that I sent to one individual. I can see that she's clicked this information, and I can also see where she's been on my website. And again, this is all from my email client. So when I know this information, now as a sales professional, I've sent an email that quote unquote clicks. So now I have further data where if she doesn't even respond, my next email out to her, maybe my next phone call to her, however I go and reach out to her, I can really talk about what she was interested in about me. Because now it does become a little bit about me. It was all about her, Jean, up until this point. But now that I know Jean has done a little bit of clicking and has taken a look at me a little bit on my website, look at this. She's visited my knowledge base 5 times. I can go into my analytics and I can actually see what pages she's actually visited on. So this is incredibly important for me now to turn this potential prospect into someone I can communicate and have a conversation about, to actually have a meeting. And remember, at the very beginning of this, we talked about the multitude of people. So I should be sending these types of emails and doing this type of research to all of the people within my customer profile, the HR user, the HR recruiter, the IT director, and heck, if you even want to send emails to the CEO, I'm not going to tell you not to. I think it's a waste of time, but if you want to go ahead and do it, that's fantastic. But the fact is once you're doing this and you've taken the time and the energy and the effort to craft the email, to craft the information, you're then able to go ahead and look and see what is working and what's not working. You're able to see what emails are clicking, what emails are effective, what emails are turning into opportunities, and what opportunities are turning into deals, those types of things, right? Because there is an old way of selling, and we've all kind of sold in it, where there's this apple orchard, right? And there's all these apples on the tree, and a couple of apples fall. They're ripe, they're ready. So what do? We as salespeople go ahead and we start moving around and picking up those apples. But the problem is we have competitors, and they get interested in those apples that have fallen off the tree, that low-hanging fruit. And are we fast enough? Can we pick those apples up quick enough? And I can tell you, as a salesperson for Xerox, this was my life on a daily basis, on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis, was finding that low-hanging fruit, finding that fruit that fell off the tree, and racing past other reps trying to pick it up. That's why you hear a lot of sales trainers talk about hustle and grit and determination, because they're talking about everything that's fallen off the tree already. They're not talking about those apples high up that aren't ripe yet. So what's the new way of selling? Well, the new way of selling, we used to call farming, but it's a little bit more than farming. The way it is to go ahead and find the seed, and not the seed of the customer, but the seed of the opportunity within a prospect. What is someone interested in? Find out what is interested in them and interact with them. Continually feed it with value. Help grow with offers of webinars and other things like that, and pretty soon you'll be able to go ahead and pick those apples before they fall. Because at the end of the day, when you take a look at my ramped process, what we find is 72% of B2B customers prefer to receive content unique to their stage in the buying process. And look at that, unique to their stage. So if someone is just looking, not interested, the content and the webinar and the email that you send that person is radically different from the email that you send the person that is farther along in the buying process. It's radically different. And that's why this process is so essential, to understand your particular clients. So I'm going to show you an example of how this worked for me. So a couple months ago, I posted something on LinkedIn, and Janine went ahead and commented on it, and I sent her an email based on her comment. And this is exactly the email that I sent her. And there was a little bit on the bottom there, and I invited her to a webinar and everything else, but this was kind of the beginning. The first 3 paragraphs are all about her, all of them. Not only did this suspect turn into a prospect, and this prospect turn into an opportunity, but Janine was so blown away that she posted this on LinkedIn for all of her network and her secondary network to see. That she was amazed that she just received this type of personal email. Now Janine doesn't work for a small organization. She works for a public company that has about 2,500 employees. And since I sell software for people with Salesforce licenses, they have a couple 1,100 Salesforce licenses, and we're now in the process of working with this particular customer, right? And so how does all this happen? All this happens is because I'm able to go ahead and craft an email based upon what the customer is interested in, what the customer wants to talk about. And it's a long process. And there are tools to go ahead and help you with that. And we're gonna close up and talk a little bit about those tools. So first off, there's this tool out called Elusify. And what it is it provides you crowdsourced leads. So when you sign up for Elusify, it looks at your contacts, and every salesperson who signed up with Elusify, it looks as their contacts within Outlook. So all the contacts that you get, all the leads that you get, are known to other people and other individuals, and they give you name, title, and email address, right? And then you type those leads into a product like LinkedIn or even LinkedIn Sales Navigator, where you can track those individuals and find out what those particular individuals are really interested in. And I know some of you are probably saying, well, some of my clients, they don't post on social, nobody likes any comments, they're not active on LinkedIn. Well, do you have a Twitter or a Facebook account? Because you can type in a hashtag or a topic and you can see exactly what people are looking at, what people within those industries are looking at. So if your particular person that you're trying to sell in HR isn't active on social, you can kind of see what other people are interested in on social, and you can analyze that information. Again, go through the ramp process and reach out to them through a prospecting email. And then lastly, our little product, Zenbit, it provides you like email and website visit tracking, right? So here is, summer is coming, it's right around the corner, and I know this is a lot to swallow for people that have probably relied on the phone for prospecting a lot, or have relied on marketing leads, marketing sending the big emails and the leads coming in and the big email campaigns. I'm asking you for 2 weeks. I'm asking you to take 2 weeks. You don't have to dedicate all of your time to this, but a product like Elusify will give you 200 leads a week for free. LinkedIn is free. But Sales Navigator will give you a free access for up to 14 days. I think 21 days for some larger companies. Twitter and Facebook are free, and if you download Zenbit, we give you a free 14-day trial, right? Sign up for the tools. Go through the ramp process and identify how you want to communicate to these customers, and then send these couple hundred emails over the next couple of weeks or over a 2-week period, and compare it with your other prospecting. Compare the data. Don't take my word for it, some guy you're listening to on a webinar. Do it and compare the data. It doesn't cost you anything but time. And what I'll even do is I'll even go a step further for those of you that are really interested. Here's my contact information, but also I'm providing you all a link. And this link is for a 30-minute mentor session. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to go ahead and, if you don't want to download Zenbit, that's fine, understandable, but I'm offering a 30-minute mentor session to take a look at your ideal customer profile and to help you create an email, prospecting email that clicks. And I'll work with you over GoToMeeting, and we'll go ahead and knock it out in 30 to 60 minutes. And what we'll do is we're just going to go ahead and fill out what we call my ICP Matrix. We're going to find out who the people are that you want to talk to, what they're interested in, why you're interesting to them, and how to get them to engage with you. And then when you draft an email, you can send it back over to me, and I'll give you commentary on it. And again, this is something that I'll offer to you, and that link will be active to the people that have either registered or that have that came to this particular webinar. But again, I'm not telling you to take all of your chips and put them in the middle of the table. This isn't an all or nothing proposal. What it is if you're having a problem with prospecting and this is interesting to you, dip a toe in the water and test it out. 400 free leads, the ability to use all the tools for free, and to go ahead and get 30 minutes of mentorship and training where you can go ahead and craft it and do it yourself. And if it doesn't work, what is it? A couple hours of your time. But if it does work, what you're looking at is building a process that will not only work for you, but for potentially more within your organization, and that will separate you from the pack out there and from the pack of people that are trying to communicate to your same prospects, selling you what they want to sell. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to any questions, and I appreciate you listening to me for this length period of time.
Great, Derek. Those were some wonderful tips and insights on how we really go about understanding our ideal customer. We do have a couple of questions that I'd love to throw back to you.
Okay, no problem.
All right. So, one of the questions is, this process seems like it takes a long time. It's a time investment.
Yes.
So, what would you suggest, just in terms of how you streamline this process for reps or even business development individuals who are new at this process and just starting out? What have you found to kind of help make the process as efficient as possible?
Right. No, that's a really good question. So really, when it comes down to it, I think I understand it's a time investment. But if you look at and I'll answer this question with a question. I mean, most of us work for sales organizations. What's the time investment of cold calling? What's the time investment that it takes to go ahead and do the types of prospecting that we're doing now? The issue is that where you want to spend your time. This is a lengthy process, so that's why identifying your ideal customer profile is probably the hardest and most important thing that you'll do in this process. Because, and again, the reason I'm asking sales reps to do that, and I've been honest with you the whole webinar, but I'll be incredibly honest. I'll give you some brutal truth right now, because we all work for organizations that have marketing departments. Marketing departments aren't the front line with the customers. 2 people within your organization know customers better than anybody else: the salespeople and your customer success people. the people on the help desk, the people that help with delivery, those people. You guys know what the customer is thinking, who the ICP is, and what they're thinking about and what they're talking about. I would say that taking someone from your help desk out to lunch and picking their brain for 60 minutes is probably worth 3 weeks of research on the internet to find out exactly what's going on in the minds of your particular customers. I know for a fact that dealing with customers myself, they won't always tell me sometimes exactly some of the things that are going on. But when I talk to the people that are on our help desk, I talk to our customer success people, I find out the issues with my product. I find out the issues with our deployment. I find out the issues that other competitors are meeting either better or differently than ours, right? And I really understand where I fit in their priorities. And I don't think I hit that hard enough here, but we can talk about this all day long. But if you don't craft a way in order to go ahead, whatever you're doing is a priority, none of this matters. It's no longer, everybody knows about BANT, right? The biggest thing in BANT was budget, right? Is there a budget? That's why it's at the beginning, it's a B, budget. Do you have a budget? Is there a budget for this? Most of what we sell, and I'm looking at some of the people on this webinar, most of what we sell doesn't come out of capital budgets anymore. It comes out of operational budgets. So if there's a priority, and if you can make it a priority, there'll be budget. There'll be budget. IBM, there's someone from IBM here on the webinar, a couple of people. $40,000 a month for software as a service from IBM is nothing. That comes out of operational budget, right? That doesn't come out of a capital expenditure. So why do I have a BANT conversation with them about that? So again, I think it really is understanding, researching, understanding your customers, and spending that time. I know it is, and again, I'm not going to lie, I know it's a time crunch. I know we're pulled in different directions. I know we have numbers we have to make. But I will tell you the level of investment, and from personal experience, the level of investment you make in yourself will pay dividends exponentially. And if your current employer doesn't appreciate it, someone else will come down the pike.
Great, Derek. So we've got another question here.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a lot about LinkedIn as kind of a research tool to use to find out more information about your ICP. But what if you find that the LinkedIn groups are starting to lose their appeal, and more people are starting to gravitate towards Facebook groups or community groups? What's been your experience with that?
Absolutely. The LinkedIn groups have been, there's still a lot of valuable information in there historically. So if you go into LinkedIn groups, there's still people posting, there's still people activating there, but whoever's asked that question is absolutely right. It's so I actually last month created my very first Facebook business account, right? Because for years I've been on Facebook sharing cat videos and stuff like that, just like every other jerk out there. But the issue is with me is I've created a Facebook presence for my business. And I've created it, as a salesperson, as a sales professional working for Zinbit, and I communicate the same things that I communicate on LinkedIn and Twitter on Facebook. And I can tell you that the reaction has been fantastic because Facebook does have groups. Facebook does have communication between different different customers and different prospects, and sending a Facebook. And we're getting a little bit out of the realm of email, but sending a Facebook Messenger message to a potential client is a very intriguing and interesting way to potentially prospect. And we're going to be talking about in a later webinar how to use social messaging and instant messaging and texting as prospecting tools, and that kind of lends itself there. But I agree with the commenter or the question, person asked the question. LinkedIn on the group level is a little different than it used to be, a little less than it used to be. However, on the other side, the ability and the ease of use for people to post short form and long form content has increased the value of LinkedIn exponentially to people who want to know what their customers are thinking. If you are interested in wanting to know, if you sell HR software and you're interested in wanting to know what HR professionals are thinking about, LinkedIn is an invaluable resource for you still, because the simple act of looking through the last 2 months' posts of the articles and the comments and everything else somebody has done on LinkedIn is going to tell you more than all of the blogs or a life subscription to Harvard Business Review. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, so here's an interesting question for you, and I appreciate this question because I came from an industry where this happened to be the case. A lot of times, particularly for the C-suite, who are the decision makers for the ERP software. But what do you do when your ICP is not active on social media?
Great question. Great question. So that kind of lends itself to what I talked about just in the last answer to the last question. Your particular ICP, the individuals that you're looking at, may not be active in social media. And let's say you sell to construction companies, and the C-levels of construction companies who buy your ERP software aren't socially active. However, I would bet you $1 to a donut that other job responsibilities are more socially active. And definitely the people within your own customer success organization have knowledge for you, not how your product is working, but kind of what's going on within the customer world, within the world of your ICP. There is, I know, especially within construction, because I've sold in construction before, there's a lot of family businesses in construction. Even large companies are family-based. And while Dad or Uncle Ray, who are in charge of XYZ construction, may not be socially active, Ray Jr., who's the IT director, probably is, right? Or Janice, who's running the accounting department, is probably socially active, belongs to different organizations, is sharing. So it really is, and that's why Elusify is such a great product, free product, because not only can you get leads, you can type in a company and you can see the email addresses of 250, 300 people within that organization. And then by utilizing LinkedIn, you just spend a half an hour figuring out who is active and who isn't, and choose. So it's kind of like, I would say, if the person you want to talk to isn't socially active, find someone who is socially active within that org and start talking to them. Because invariably, you have one of two things going on. Either you can stand outside the gates of the castle and keep throwing a rock over the wall trying to hit the king who you're trying to talk to, or you can talk to the people that are walking in and out of the front door that maybe are a little lower level, but are still but are communicating in that level of medium. And once you've gained their trust and their respect as a valuable resource, then they'll walk you into the castle. They'll walk you in right to the court. But again, it's a longer process, and that's why I say, if this is new to you, or if this is something that you've been thinking about, dipping your toe in and taking a look and doing it, and doing some A/B testing on how it works effective to other prospecting, that's, I would say, go ahead and test it. Go ahead and try it and do it. And but yeah, I understand it is incredibly difficult. The good answer for that is that as time progresses, that will become less and less. Because if you look at both the industry numbers and you look at the international numbers, the millennial generation is now 50-some% of the workforce and 46% of the decision makers out there, and within the next 5 years it's going to be 60-some% of the decision makers out there, and those people are digitally native, and those people are all over Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything else. So it is changing. It may not be changing fast enough for our quarter or our month that we have to make right now, but it is changing. And I would say go ahead and bet on the future.
Excellent. Well, Derek, that's most of the questions that we have for the session today, and I see that a number of folks are beginning to take the advice and go and run with it. So I think we can wrap it up, but we'll certainly be sending the link to the recording to everyone, along with the supporting materials that Derek graciously put together. And we hope that everyone will go out there and try it. And if you do and you're successful, tweet to us at Zenbit or to Derek at Real Sales Advice and let us know how things are going. We'd love to hear the feedback.
Right, fantastic. And I really do appreciate the time that you guys have spent with me. And if the one thing I leave you with is that Babe Ruth said a long time ago, yesterday's home runs don't win today's games. Right, so there's a lot of advice out there about what you should be doing for prospecting, and there's a lot of people like me out there that think they got the answer. Test it out for yourself. Always be willing to learn. Don't bank your future and your future months and quarters on someone else's past, right? Whether you know, they may be great people, keep on learning. And 6 months from now, this information that I provided to you may be verging on obsolescence, but be willing to make that happen, be willing to understand that, because sales is constantly changing. And if we're talking here a year from now and we're still talking about email, I expect this process, while similar, to be a little bit different, and to the emails to be a little bit different as well. So if you don't take anything else away from the webinar today, take the fact is you are the best arbiter of what's going to work within your organization and within your customers.